Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
All right, cool. So today we started explaining about the architecture and a little bit some introduction about like web applications and mobile applications and even desktop applications. So today I'm gonna show the schema to you really. So hope that the schema really will shed some light on how what does it mean, like the system level testing, the architecture of modern web 2.0 application. And it's actually pretty much the same for the mobile applications as well, because the difference here is just this part. You see the browsers part over there. So instead of browsers, because the modern architecture is built in, it's called microservices. And please.com is actually the application that follows microservices architecture, which is, it's actually serverless. It's even fancier. So the only difference really here, instead of like browser, please.com is actually about to launch mobile application this spring, I believe in March. So what's going to happen instead of browser, it's going to be a mobile application, and it doesn't really matter either it's Android or iOS. It's pretty much the same as like the Firefox icon here, or Safari, or Internet Explorer, you know, or mobile device. Pretty much the same of the rest of the architecture, the rest of the schema is gonna remain the same really. So let's start. With so this is typical architecture, and the way we test, you see end users here on the right side. So the way you test the system, we are testing it as an end user, right? So really, except for this 3-person here on the right, the whole this thing, this is really our application. And it's actually, our application really is this part. Data center, you see this? Virtual physical environment, DB server, app server, and web server. So this is really a backend of our application, but the front end is these browsers. And these are two different environments. However, you can see like how many things are in between of these two things. So pretty much when you open your browser and enter please.com in the browser and hit enter, what happens from the browser here, it goes to like local ISP, which is internet provider, or mobile carrier if it's like in case of your phone, but it doesn't matter again. Then it goes to through to continuing content delivery networks, which is CDN, which is a caching mechanism. So the purpose of CDN is to it's called offload. So instead of hitting our application here, some of the stuff it can return back immediately. So the chain is shorter, the response time is better, right? And as users, we are more satisfied because it works faster. And then, of course, third-party cloud services like YouTube, for example, like whatever payment systems, those are not the part of application usually. For example, for please.com, they use third-party application called Stripe, which is, well, it's API. So all the payments are going through that Stripe system. Sometimes you know, like when you buy something, let's say on eBay, they ask you like, do you want to pay with PayPal, right? So PayPal would be third-party cloud service here as well. Or for example, when it comes to like our wiki page, right? You guys hopefully seen like the last For example, this one, this screen here. Let me show that to you. This screen, you see YouTube video. It's in an iframe. However, it wasn't loaded to the wiki page itself. It's just a link. See, if I click edit, it's an iframe, and the actual location of the video is this. So this is third party, right? But it displayed nicely on the page. So for example, Google Docs here, the same thing. It's separate third-party application, and even it picks up like extra session title. You see how an icon, so you don't have to even like write anything about this document. It's automatically there. So these are third-party applications. And then it goes to major ISP, which is it's some kind of provider, but of like a general provider. So all these local providers, they pretty much connected to major provider. I would say it's like a state or federal level provider, very big ones, because local ISP, that would be your like Time Warner Cable or well Spectrum or whatever. This one, well, I don't even know like who is this. And then there is a firewall, which is really a line of defense, so it doesn't allow any other traffic. It only allows the traffic that that is kind of safe and that will interact with our system here, the backend part, because we don't want to expose like any other ports and give that, you know, like open doors for hackers to get inside here. This part is kind of very secure. That's why we have this firewall. And then within the backend, we have 3 layers. So it's multi-tiered architecture. So the first layer is web server, and that one is really just to kind of keep your session or return back like static documents or assets, like images, for example, even though they're supposed to be cached as a part of CDN here. So web servers handle that. And then we have app server. This is where all the logic is stored. So for example, when you create profile, when you create your account on a place.com, the actual logic that creates that account is really here in an app server. Basically, all the code that developers write, it resides here in an app layer. And then we also have database servers. And as you can see, it's not just a single computer, it's multiple computers. And in fact, it can be, this one can be just one application, but it can be multiple applications as well. And then those applications interact with each other, but we interact with just one main application. So we don't even know. As a black box tester, it kind of doesn't matter like what's underneath, but it's pretty common interview question. Like just it's a interview question of a kind like please prove me that you worked for whatever project. Just tell something about architecture. Yeah, database is just a data. It's a whole bunch of data. We're gonna have a separate class for that. We're gonna play around with databases and see what's in there and see how we can use it in our favor, because it's more technical, but there is a lot of questions on the interview. When you go to the company itself, they will ask you like, okay, what's your experience with database? They can ask you to write a couple of queries and maybe ask you a couple of questions, because it is important. It is important to know and to know how to find some particular information related to like whatever the feature you're working on, because anything, like all the data gets stored in the database by the end of the day. So so it has a lot of information. It can be very helpful. So any questions about this, guys? So when we enter please.com, it goes all the way here and then returns back, right? As we discussed in the previous session. It's HTTP protocol. It's a request response, right? So we send request, we get response back. So another interesting thing that we actually have three caching mechanisms here. So content delivery network is one of them. And then all the browsers, they actually have cache. And I'm going to show you how that works. However, application itself has its own cache. So these three caches, I'm going to show you how to deal with that. And that's why it's important to clear cache of your browser every time you get the newer version of your application. So, okay, there is a question about like, how can we answer? Well, you can, I would recommend you go to the whiteboard and draw something similar to this. It doesn't have to be like exactly the same, but you just draw like browser, like provider, third-party stuff, and then the backend, and then you can say like when I enter something, I'm in the browser, I'm sending GET request, and it goes all the way through all this parties involved to the web server and app server, and the backend responds back with a response, right? That's in short like how HTTP protocol works. 2-3 sentences really. And I had this question on one of the companies on the interview question. So there is a little more stuff like here about like enterprise or consumer product. Well, our application is consumer product really, but again, it's hard to say. My application that I'm working for in my company is actually enterprise product. So you can read a little bit of stuff here like B2B, e-commerce and stuff like that. We're gonna cover, once we start preparing ourselves for the interview, we're gonna cover like different monetization techniques. For example, every company, of course, all the companies are commercial companies, meaning that they working to make money, right? So, and it's another interview question on like, okay, tell me about your company. Like, what's the how your company makes money, and like how many users do you have, and all that stuff. So we're gonna build that profile later on. Another question they can ask, like, what are the latest technologies that you know? Well, this is the list. I would say for me personally, self-driving cars is huge. It just shows that you you're familiar with the tech world, really nothing else, just about your kind of personality, like that you do care about technology, and you're kind of looking forward for this new stuff that will, if you watch that movie, the TV show Silicon Valley, they always say like to make the world a better place. So that's funny because I mean, idea behind every single thing here is really to make a world a better place, and of course make money out of it. So yeah, these are the things you can Google later on. What is that? But so to me, again, self-driving cars would be the biggest, because really once they do this, right now there is like a war going on these new companies like Tesla, for example, even Apple or Uber, they invest tons of money in self-driving cars, because once they roll out these things, like whoever builds that first will get the whole automobile market. I would say the whole world automobile market. So pretty much all the Nissan and Toyotas or Mercedeses, they pretty much will go away after that. So it's gonna be like huge company. Well, and that's my humble opinion. I may be wrong, I don't know, but that's how I see it. Yeah, so we're gonna discuss this later on once we start preparing ourselves for the interview. So let's not rush right now. So this is some difference about like web server and app server. I briefly explained that to you. I'm not gonna spend more time on this. A couple of examples of like web servers, basically for C# companies, like for example my company, it's IIS, Internet Information Services. It's built in Windows. Not much you can do about it. For the rest of the stuff, Apache HTTP server is pretty big. As you can see, it's like 60% of all web servers running on it. I would say there is nothing more that you should know about this. Just don't let them catch you, and that's it. So let's talk about HTML. We kind of briefly touched that topic, but I don't think you guys kind of got it from the first attempt. So let me explain. Basically, HTML, it's hypertext markup language, right? Again, guys, it's a text, right? It's a text, so all the requests and responses are in a text format. And then this is really related to, this is like HTML example, but I can show that to you a little later. So basically, HTML itself is just like a DOM structure. It's like a tree. So if I scroll down here quickly, so this is like how HTML really looks. It's like a tree. It has these children, and then they children like tr, and then they have another children and another children and another children, and so on. This is very short example, but for example, if you go to place.com, and if I open console by clicking F12, you can see the HTML here. So if you click the elements, the very first one, the elements, this is the HTML. You see it starts HTML lang, la 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 la, and then it goes like style this, and then these are parent. So HTML page should have like head and body, these two big objects. Head really is like a metadata, like some JavaScript stuff. You don't see this on the page. It doesn't get rendered. What gets rendered is this. You see when I move on the body, the whole page on the left highlighted with blue color. When I mouse over on head, nothing gets highlighted because it's invisible. Body is what really this page is. All the structure is hidden in body, and then you can go by one. Again, some of the stuff, it has like JavaScript and scripts and some other assets. And then, so for example, root, you see this is main object of the whole entire page. And then there is another one, div class home, and then div class container, and then some other one, and then some other one. You see how deep it goes? This is DOM, right? It's like a tree. And then here, for example, look. So this one, div class home page top, right? Let me make it a little bit bigger. You see when I mouse over on this, now it's no longer the whole entire page. It's only this top part. You see it's even called page top. And if I mouse over on the second thing, you see the lower part gets highlighted. So let me scroll down, you see? Like this part, excluding the top part. And then, so basically this whole entire page, it's divided into two big parts, right? So that one and this one, and well, for some reason I don't see. Okay, now I can see. So this is the second part. This is the second part. And then you see there is footer part, which is third part. So actually three major elements. So the homepage really consists of three major elements. And then you can actually go deeper one by one. So let's take the first one. So this is the one. So header, you don't see much. H1 is really like the name, right? The first part, you see book complete, customizable trips and minutes. And then H2, no added costs. These are two siblings. And then another part is the search bar. You see home search. And then another part is this create trip block. And that's pretty much it. And then you can actually go deeper just within this block itself. There is a button block, and then there is a link. It's actually not a button, but it's a link. So basically it's called decomposition, and I'm gonna show you this concept later on as well as a part maybe is our extra session, because the problem here is, it's a natural concept, technique for developers. So they all know what decomposition means. However, you may not know decomposition. So for example, the issue here really, like when we ask you to write test cases for, let's say, one of the teams got a homepage or landing page. So the problem here that I saw, you didn't apply decomposition technique. So basically, you kind of didn't have a structured approach of tackling the task, because landing page in particular is pretty big. So instead of like just jumping on all the possible elements, you should have decomposed the page to smaller pieces. And this is how it works, right? So homepage is really, it has three major pieces. One piece is this like the one with carousel. Basically, it's a logo and a menu, and then this carousel and create a trip. The second part is this featured customizable trips. Well, maybe you can actually do like top destinations as well, and footer. So now you have four big pieces. So you can go further, and then, for example, header here, you can decompose to main menu, right? Which is all of these things here. And you can decompose it to carousel. And carousel as well has like search box, which is completely different feature, and create a trip from scratch button. So, and then you can go one by one, decomposing further, decomposing further. Basically, what you're gonna get is really this DOM structure. So this is DOM structure. This DOM structure really is a kind of decomposition of the page, right? So let's go back a little bit.
Actually, Denis, I want to add something. Like this format that you saw in applies.com, it's pretty like common format, like all the web pages. Like if you will test, let's say some internet store or like any e-commerce website, they all will have like a header, footer, and all the content. And I'm pretty sure like all this content in a homepage, it's configurable. They probably have some kind of CMS like a WordPress or Magento, and you can like add content or like change it or change type of content. Like let's say you can like add this feature customizer trip to the head and moves this like a main like a search bar to the bottom. It's usually customizable, and it's like a constructor, like you just like building main page here.
No, yeah, I don't see any CMS here, but well, who knows?
Yeah, I'm just saying, it's like I work in my previous 2 companies, we use like the same kind of main application in a website, and it all was customizable.
All right, yeah, and I would actually say, so HTML is a special case of XML, which we kind of discussed previously. So you can see like HTML, doc type, la 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 la. There is a XML down here. Example, this one. As you can see, XML version, la la la, and these are pretty much the same text, right? So that's why, for example, we can use XPath technique, which we will cover later on as a part of automation, in order to locate the elements. Okay, so HTML itself, basically it's a DOM structure, right? But however, it's not the only thing that makes the page. So there is also CSS, which is basically it's like a visual representation, like a style, like how particular element should be displayed, like what size of font, what color, what the background, margins, and all that stuff. And JavaScript, which is a programming language really. And yes, a browser, it's a special environment that runs JavaScript code. So here we have JavaScript on the front end, and all of the browsers on any device, they actually support JavaScript. And on the back end here, it's a choice of the developers what kind of language and framework they're gonna use. But the interesting thing, so for example, for police.com, it's a Node.js backend really, so it's a JavaScript backend and JavaScript front end, right? But for example, Gmail application or Google Docs, it's actually right here. So if I open Vaporizer, which is the application that I use for just for reading what's the stack is, you can see that Google Docs is written in Java. And that's the beauty of this architecture. Front end and back end are detached from each other by network requests. Network requests are just text, and it's a world standard. Basically, for front end, it doesn't matter what's on the back end. It can be C#, can be Java, can be JavaScript, PHP, doesn't matter. It all gets transferred to text, which is HTML, or like API requests, which is all like text as well. And then it goes back and forth in a text format. So the backend can be swappable. Front end is always JavaScript, right? So let's go down here. So the HTML itself, as you can see, it consists of tags like this. There is always opening tag like HTML, for example, the root, right? And then the closing tag. Closing tag comes with the slash sign. And in fact, so if you go here again, you can actually, you see how I can expand, for example, let's take something smaller, like this script, you see? This is opening, this is closing, and browser even shows this arrow so you can expand or collapse these sections, like the whole body I can expand and collapse. So there is a structure, and it's very strict actually. If you forget the closing tag, the whole page will be messed up. So it's a very strict on the syntax. And then for the tags, so this is tags, which is really one tag is I would say it's an element really. Sometimes you can see some of them, sometimes like buttons or links, you can see them. Some of them are like div, for example. Div tag is kind of invisible. It's like a container for usually just to kind of store multiple elements underneath. And it's actually for mobile application, pretty much it's the same structure. Maybe it's not HTML, but it's some kind of XML, right, Azad?
Yep, exactly.
So they all, I worked with like Xbox applications, for example. It's just a pure XML. But XML, again, HTML is XML. So basically, all the applications, they follow the same concept of DOM.
Yeah, even like if you will start to work with mobile automation, you will be able to locate basically all elements using XML.
Yep, and then rather than tags, they have some attributes. Okay, opening tag, closing tag. So for example, let me show you, let me show this button, for example. It's an easy example. You see, so tag is A, which stands for anchor, which is really link. It means link. And then it has these attributes here. So href, it's hyperreference. It's a URL really. So this is just a link. You see if I mouse over, it shows please.com trips create. So this link has a, that's why it's called link. It actually has a, it links you to some place, to some other page, right? And then it also has this, you see strong tag, which is just a visible text here. That's it. And then what else? So typical controls for web pages. So when you write your bug report or when you write the test case, this is the most common types of elements. So sometimes you can get into a situation where you kind of don't know how to really call this element on the page. But basically, it's not that many actually. So as you can see, it's like 4 major, I would say maybe like not even 4 major groups, like input controls, checkboxes, radio buttons, right? So do you guys know what's the checkbox and what radio button? I don't see anything here.
I mean, I can explain while you're looking for it. Like checkboxes, usually it's using for multiple selection, and the radio buttons usually used like for only one, like single selection.
Yeah, you see on the right here, checked, grayed, unchecked. So these are checkboxes. So you can, as that said, you can select many of them. Sometimes, usually it's either like empty, or when you select it, it has like this kind of V sign, or X, like cross sign, right? Radio button is similar to this, but it's only one option can be selected. So like this, you see radio button 1, 2, 3, you can select only one. It's usually round shaped. Checkbox is usually square shaped. And the radio button, it's round shape, and the selection itself is kind of rounded in the shape, right? Drop-down lists. So yeah, it's called Vapalizer. I mean, it won't help you much passing the interview, but just for curiosity, you can see like all the different types of applications. For example, on please.com, if you click it, you will see that it's based on a React, which is JavaScript framework. And as I mentioned, Stripe is third-party payment processor. And Fresh Chat is this icon. Remember that bug that we logged? Oh, it's actually maybe another one. Well, okay, never mind. So we have 2 of them. Google Analytics for analytics, of course. We're gonna cover that. You see CDN, Cloudflare. It actually even shows that. So, okay, drop-down list, right? You probably see that many times. Drop-down lists, right? It's like this selection thing. You see, like allow, and you click on this, and there is a list, and you can select only one. It's actually a pretty common element even for desktop. So this particular example here is from Excel. As you can see, checkboxes and drop-down lists. Again, it's all simplified. It's the same for mobile devices as well. So all of those elements, it doesn't matter what type of platform you work in. If it's like human-facing, then you will pretty much see all of this things here, like list boxes, button. I mean, it's clear. Well, that's interesting thing because really, for example, on the police.com, so this create a trip from scratch, it looks like it's a button, right? However, it's not a button. It's actually a link, you see, because it's a href. But like day one could be a button. You see button tag. You see this? So it can be frustrating sometimes, but if you go here, you can find exactly what it is. And if you struggle to finding like what would be the best name, like for example, when you open your ticket, like bug or test case, whatever, you're struggling with a name, you can just inspect the element. You just mouse over, right click, inspect element, you see? And it goes, it brings you exactly to that element. So once you highlight it, once you mouse over on that element, it will highlight it on the left, like this. And you can see that it's actually button. And you can see that sometimes it has like a name on it. Well, you can just really use this label like button day one. Right, and some stuff like top bar, for example, or banner, you see, trip organizer, like all of these things you can use really in your documentation or when you're communicating the issue with developers, or basically developers know this because they created all of this. So once you say top bar, they will immediately understand you because they come up with this name. So you just picking up the terms that they come up with and use them. So you guys speak on the same language. Toggles, it's like on and off. You probably have seen that as well, especially on like on mobile devices. Like this one, you see iOS toggle. This is the toggle, on and off, right? Text fields, well, of course, text fields is like this, where you actually can enter something. This is text field, like logging, right? Again, if you inspect this, you will see that it's input. You see, it's input type. So this all of these are input. And then date field, it's basically like this date picker, like this one, for example. It's kind of input field as well, right? You can actually type the date in there, but when you click on it, there is a date picker module is displayed where you can actually select either like a single day or date range or stuff like that, right? Again, date input, screen reader start date, la la la. Okay, navigational components. So do you guys know what breadcrumb means? That's funny thing because bread is bread, like what we eat, And crumb is these little pieces of the bread that you have to wipe out of your table once you eat the bread, right? Or you know, like kvass, that's made of breadcrumbs, right? Do you guys know what breadcrumb is? No?
Definitely no.
Yeah, right. So it's basically, I don't know.
Series of connected pieces of information.
Yeah, so basically you probably like saw it's like a path. So if it would be your computer, you go to like disk C and then like some folder and then some folder, and the same way usually user can navigate through the application. Well, that's the actual breadcrumb, right? Website. So it's okay. This is the example of breadcrumbs. Where is that? You see this Best Buy computers and tables, laptops. So Best Buy would be like the very top page, and then you go down. Like you can consider Best Buy as a like parent folder that has a whole bunch of folders. And you can go to computers and tablets, you can go to TVs, you can go to like kitchen electronics and like who knows what else. And then underneath, it's another folder. Underneath there is a laptops folder, and then there's like all laptops, and then PC laptops, and then it can go like very deep again. And the beauty of this, you can return, for example, if you like looking for PC laptops and then you want to actually see like what else, what kind of like laptops do they also have, you can click. From here you can go one level up without actually going all the way up. You can just go one level up and see like, oh, there is a Mac laptops and PC laptops and like Chromebooks and something else, and you can, it's pretty common for websites. As you can see, it's like a lot of times. I'm not sure like if we have it as a part of please.com, for example. But it's usually somewhere. Okay, I need to log in. Okay, don't want to do that. Anyways, so these are breadcrumbs. Sliders. Slider is basically like this thing here on top, or it's called carousel. Well, it's like carousel here, but if I switch to mobile view, it becomes a slider, so you can actually like, well, you cannot, huh? Somehow it doesn't work here. No, but you can kind of slide it, right? Search field, which is really just is this guy, but it's really nothing but special case of text field. Pagination. Do you guys know what pagination is? So, for example, if I search something on Google, on the actual Google, not on the like whatever. You see this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 down here? This is pagination. So these are pages. They don't want to show you like all 38 million results on the same page. Why do they don't want to do that? Because it's very heavy. It's gonna take you forever. It's gonna be like a couple of like gigabytes of data probably. So what they do, they break it down like, so the result set is really, I believe it's like what, 10 results. And then they say, if you want to see more, you click 2. And that will show you like 10 more, you see? And that's why it's only 0.42 seconds to load. And that's a little trick to make the performance better. And at the same time, if you will request this whole thing, and then somebody else will request the whole thing, and somebody else, their backend will just go down because it's just a lot of load. So that's how they kind of offload the backend, and it's pretty common technique. Slider again, I don't know, let me delete this. Tags, well, tags is something like, you see like disable bootstrap icon, these are pretty much tags. Right, does it say tag anywhere? So these are some kind of elements with the text. Sometimes you can see like tag cloud on some websites, you see like this. So these are tags, and all these are very nice representation of tags. Like the bigger tag, the more weight it has, or more power, or the more popular it is, right? Icons, of course. Do we have, yeah, like this one, you see icon, like this anonymous user icon, right? Or you can, in this case, it can be just an image. You can say like this icon here on the very top of the page, like where my cursor is, that fev icon, like the one is displayed in the browser tab itself. And then, yeah, some other stuff like informational, like tooltips. Do you guys remember tooltips? Like when you do some crazy stuff. No, what was that? There was a tooltip here saying like, hey, something is, like you see this error message. Well, it's not exactly, but there was a tooltip with like yellow sign over there. Icons again, progress bar. Pretty much you have seen that for sure, especially if it's like transactional kind of model of like whatever application like this. You see progress bar, or like this progress bars when they show like how much left for whatever you're doing right now. Right, notifications, just like, again, it's some kind of like tooltip or like model. Message boxes, well, kind of the same stuff. Modal windows, modals, it's called non-blocking modal. It's pretty popular these days, and what it is yeah, this thing. So you see, if you open some page, the rest of the page kind of grays out, and then there is a like window, like this white one is displayed, and usually like they ask you to do something, or they want to get your attention. So this is non-blocking model, so you can close it really without any issue, but there is alerts at the same time. Those things are blocking. Is there anything like this one? You probably seen this. This alert it's a browser thing. Modal is really like a page, part of the page, but this alert, it's a browser and it's blocking. So everything really gets kind of get freezed while this is open, and you cannot do anything unless you close this modal. And it usually looks kind of simple. So when modal is really HTML based, so you can have like all the bells and whistles, any colors, and
yeah, basically if you open the chat on the please.com, like it will open the model as an iframe.
Yeah, this one, right?
Yep. I mean, you don't have to test it because it's third party, but just to have your idea how it looks like.
Yeah. All right. Accordion containers. Don't think we have anything here, but it's basically, and it's like it's what it is. It's like a musical instrument. Oops, sorry. Well, right. So basically, you can expand it or collapse it. They call it like hamburger sometimes because it has many layers. So for example, this is one of the examples. You click on the button and there is an expansible section somewhere, right? Or this. Well, maybe actually if you click it, no, it's not exactly. All right, so these are the most typical elements on the page. Please use it. If you don't know, inspect the element or look it up here. So another part of the page is JavaScript, and JavaScript is really a scripting language, and it was designed to add interactivity to HTML pages. So basically, all the like animations and like fun stuff was done by JavaScript. Nowadays, it grew so big. There is a whole like huge concept of like jQuery and asynchronous calls and stuff like that. So JavaScript became very big, and even like please.com backend is written in JavaScript. So it wasn't built for backend in the beginning. Pretty much PHP was the most popular language for backend, but now JavaScript is pretty popular, and it's actually powered by Google. So it has what's the name, V8, I believe. That's the Node.js engine for JavaScript. So that thing is pretty huge, and the beauty of this for developers, they used to like front-end developers, they have to know like JavaScript, but the backend developers, again, because of this architecture, it's detached. They can really write using any language. Well, yeah, basically Ajax is kind of JavaScript, yeah. It's like modern, like jQuery implementation. But nowadays, to be a full stack developer, they can just know JavaScript, just one language, right? So for example, back in the days, they have to learn like PHP for backend and JavaScript for frontend, or Java for backend and JavaScript for frontend. Now it can be just a JavaScript. Makes life much, much, much easier. So why frontend always with JavaScript? Yeah, it's a good question. At some point, they just agreed that it's going to be a language for that. That's it. So now it's like a standard. So Java and JavaScript the same? No, it's not the same. Not even close. Well, a little close, but it's not necessarily to know JavaScript as a manual tester. No, it's not. It's a programming language. As a manual tester, once you step into JavaScript, you're not doing like black box testing anymore. Basically, pretty much you're a gray box tester, but you can be even a white box tester. What is better to learn for animation, Java or JavaScript? Oh, that's a holy war over there. I don't know the answer. Nobody does. I would say if you know, well, Java is way heavier than JavaScript. That's why it's called script. It follows a different concept. It was really some of the developers, they don't really like JavaScript because they feel like JavaScript is too basic. And why? Because JavaScript was built for webmasters. If you guys remember that back in the days, there were like webmasters, and what they really did, they worked on your website, but there was no programming language really attached to it. So they didn't know programming languages really, and they needed some programming language, very easy one, to start doing something on the like very something like that anyone could understand, and the learning curve shouldn't be that bad, like from learning perspective. However, now it's pretty big, and it's kind of not the case anymore. But JavaScript is still simpler than Java. Well, Java is kind of tough language, really. It's pretty kind of old, but it was built for backend, and the purpose of backend was different. It's a very strict language. It's kind of complicated. There is a lot of like design patterns and all that stuff. In JavaScript, you pretty much just you write what you need to achieve. That's it. In Java, you don't do that. You have to follow the rules. You have to follow the structure, and it's becoming pretty big. But it's very structured. It's kind of very safe. So don't want to cover JavaScript, but I want to show you something. So if you go to console here, so this is really like where you can execute JavaScript. And I'm going to show you like little demo here. So for example, we are on this page, right? And if, well, that was actually alert over there, right? So we are on this page, right? And if I click please.com, we get to the homepage or landing page, right? Oh, by the way, this is, you see the spinner here? You see the spinner here? That's a jQuery or Ajax or whatever. Oh, okay, don't see it anymore. So, okay, let me show you how does this work. So again, JavaScript lives in the browser. So basically you have access to JavaScript. You can do pretty much anything with JavaScript. So I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna click this please.com icon image here with the JavaScript without like doing a mouse thing. I just want to show you that you can do that. So you just need to go to console, and again, it's a pretty much automation already. If you want to do like a JavaScript, you can start typing document. It's basically the page itself, right? So I'm saying, okay, page, and then like, what is this? By something, by class name. I'm saying like, hey, page, find me an element by class name. And this is my class name here. And then I can say, click. This is the function. And nothing happens, huh? What is that? It's not a function. What's wrong with this? Okay, it doesn't work. Was it this? No. Okay.
Dennis, maybe try to, instead of space in a class name, try to add that.
Oh, yeah, right. No, it doesn't work anyways. Oh, I can even do it like this, right? My class name. Okay. So this is like pretty much the JavaScript that didn't work. Whatever, don't want to waste more time. But you can also use like jQuery here. In this case, the syntax is different. It's like this $sign. And then the class, you define it like this. Oh, okay, you see, jQuery worked, so we clicked the button. Oh, probably JavaScript doesn't have click method. That's why it's a jQuery function, not. Anyways, This is how it is, and you can do crazy stuff. You can even automate something. You can type in like search field. A lot of things can be done. It's a really programming language right here in your browser. What else? Yeah, jQuery, I showed that to you, and yeah, Jax, it's right here. It's a library because JavaScript is pretty old, but this jQuery is newer, and it's kind of, the concept was write less, do more, so it's very concise. As you could see, for example, this one is way shorter than this one, right? But it's pretty much the same thing. So JSON, we covered that already. PHP, don't wanna, you can read it. Like CSS, that's another concept of HTML. And basically like anything here, everywhere you can see like CSS, you see styles here. So this is how you can see your CSS. And the fun part, you can see the actual CSS file like this one. This is how it looked like. It's just a like definition of like visual representation. It's just a text again, just a text. It's nothing it's all text. So the cool parts here, for example, you see like book complete customizable trips, la la la. You can actually see like everything here, like font size. You see 40. You can actually change it to like something like whatever, 50 or color format. You can like font weight. You see, I can no edit cost. You see, I uncheck this check, and no edit cost becomes bold, right? You can like uncheck something. You will see the changes immediately. You can even like, see font family. I click this, you see how font get changed. So it's all configured by CSS here. And another thing is this computed tab. It's pretty interesting because you can see all the sizes. Like, you see, like it's this particular text is 340 pixels by width and 168 by height, and you can see like all the borders and margins, and again you can play around with that stuff here. But again, it kind of just for general understanding, you don't have to know like how it all works, but just to be able say a couple of words if they ask you about like CSS, like just to explain what is that for. That's it. Cookies. Well, we covered that already, right? Don't want to explain that, but for example, you can find cookies here as well. So if you go to application, you see cookies here. So these are the cookies for this website. So for example, if I log in now, which is, I believe my login was I don't remember even. Okay. So if you log in and then you clean up all the cookies from here, which is you can just delete them like this, and then you refresh the page, you will be logged out. And you see even it shows me a message like I'm a first time on this website. But I got some stuff here, some sessions. So let's see. I believe if once I click this close, is anything? No. So usually like when you accept something, another cookie gets created here, saying like, oh yeah, this one, GDPR dismissed, you see? True. So this is GDPR. It's a recent security update in EU. So if I delete this, you see, now I'm seeing the same message again because it treats me as I'm a brand new user. However, I can actually create that cookie here manually, and this way I will kind of trick it, or I can just click close and refresh the page. You see again, GDPR dismissed. Some of these cookies is really hard to read. Why? Because this is pretty sensitive information. You can hijack to the other person's session, but by intercepting these cookies. So that's kind of important. Yeah, that's it. For cookies, DOM, we discussed that already. XML, XPath, it's a technique coming from XML. And again, HTML is a special case of XML. That's why we can actually apply it. So in the console here, remember this one? So this is the CSS technique. So you can locate elements using different techniques. You can go to elements, hit Control F, and you see find by string selector or XPath. So if I enter my CSS here, it highlights this element, right? However, I can use the same with the XPath. And we're going to cover this later on. But again, this is just how pretty much how any web application works. You just dealing with a whole bunch of elements, and you have to separate them out and assign some functionality on those elements, right? So XPath is an older technique, so the syntax for XPath is not that actually good, but it's something like this, all right? Oops. It really does the same exactly, but the syntax is just not that concise. So for example, where was that? It was some weird thingy, huh? Yeah, this one. So basically it's the same thing. You see, it works. It found the same element for me, but it's way longer than CSS. So XML is usually a technique that backend developers use because they're more familiar with XML, but front-end developers, they usually use CSS locators. Automation people have to know both, so don't worry about that. What else? Well, TCP/IP, in short, it's a protocol. It's a basic communication language protocol. Really, HTTP works based on TCP. So TCP is a lower level protocol. Don't want to go into the details. HTTP protocol, again, you can read it. It's all the internet is really built because of HTTP protocol, and it's a very good channel of like front end and back end communication channel. So it's a text and it's a standard. So that's why front end in JavaScript can communicate with the back end in any other language. It doesn't matter. IP address is a unique identifier of pretty much every single machine has its own IP address. There are two types: IP version 4, the old one, which is something like this, and then IP version 6, which is something like this, kind of weird. But every single website or computer, it has its own IP address, right? So for example, if I go to command line here and what would I do? Like I would ping please.com, right? You can actually see that it's not pinging please.com, it's pinging this IP address. So this is the IP address of please.com. How you can know that it's equal? We can actually go there. So it's what was that? 104, 25, 104, 114. So if I go there, then nothing happens. Why is that? Okay, direct IP access is not allowed. Okay, it's a Cloudflare. It's a CDN is preventing me from doing this, which is, well, something new. But whatever, our Jira or like any other app pretty much has this IP. And if you know IP, which is you can really grab from here, you can go there using IP address really. So what else? DHCP DNS. This is basically, instead of, because humans, they don't like doing this IP addresses, right? So if I say like, hey guys, could you please go to 104.25.104.114? It doesn't make sense to you, right? Like, what is this? Like, whole bunch of numbers. What does it even mean? So, but here you see I'm pinging please.com. So really, DHCP or DNS, it determines based on the actual name, like human-friendly name. It's a mapping to it maps to the numbers. Numbers are good for machines. The name good for human. So that's why we don't use the numbers, but we use the actual name. So the whole point of having this DNS, well, in DHCP, it's dynamic host configuration. It's like it's kind of network thing to assign those names. And the VPN, that's a virtual private network. So for example, once you get a job, if you want to connect to your let's say to QA environment, most of the times those internal environments are hidden from the public access or database access. You won't get there without connecting through the VPN. So your employer will provide you a VPN access so you can connect from home to the working environment. That's the purpose of that. And once you connect it using VPN, all the traffic gets recorded. So they have all the firewalls, they have all the rules to limit your access. They can track you, they can decrypt your traffic, so no secrets at all. So don't watch any inappropriate content while connected through the VPN. Or the opposite, like if you torrent guy, you can connect to VPN that will actually hide the traffic from your provider. So, but again, do you really know? They hide it and they don't share with anyone else. Hard to say, right? So, yeah, that's pretty much it for today.